the American state of Oklahoma. The storm destroyed a motel and caused severe damage to other parts of the city of El Reno. That's it for now. More later.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to Des Kelly Interiors. For the latest trends in carpets, vinyls and wood flooring, Des Kelly Interiors, where quality flooring costs less.
Mostly dry today with sunny spells and just isolated showers. Highest temperatures of 14 to 18 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
And then welcome back. So we're turning to review the Sunday papers. We're joined in studio by Gavin Cooney from the 42.ie. Almost said balls.
Oh yeah, I've moved on.
No, you sure have. Going very well as well. And Declan Lynch of the Sunday Independent here in studio. We are, as ever, streaming on Facebook, YouTube, Periscope, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere really. We're also still on the radio if you want to sit just where you are. Sunday Independent, front page. For those of you who can't see it, it's a very happy Johnny Sexton at full-time yesterday in Glasgow. Leinster finishing a high with victory in Glasgow's backyard is the headline. And it's Brendan Fanning writing here in the front page that Leinster stood on the podium once again with a 10th major competition won between the European and Celtic rugby competition since 2008. Beneath that, Dublin massacre Laois in ominous sign, or signal of intent rather. It was pretty ominous. It was certainly a massacre. 5-21 to 10 points, the final scoreline yesterday. Back page of the Mail on Sunday. Paradise regained. Leinster put Euro agony behind them to retain Pro 14 title in Celtic Park thriller, and a picture of Sean O'Brien in his suit. Tough way to finish in a way. Not the worst way to finish, but a tough way to finish, I'm sure, as well. He was out through injury and lifting the trophy with his teammates behind him. Leinster 18, Glasgow 15, if you didn't catch the final scoreline. Neil Lennon offered the job in the showers, literally, yesterday after they won the Cup. The Cup is mine, so is the job. Neil Lennon. Guided Celtic to treble. I mean, he didn't really. He guided them to, a ninth of it or something. I don't know what the maths is, but Boss Lennon guided Celtic to treble before being offered the post full-time in the showers in the dressing room yesterday. Needless to say, he took it. Mayo get a hell of a shock, and they sure do. Picture here of Mayo's Diarmuid O'Connor, hands on his head. They weren't expecting this. They weren't banking on this. Roscommon pull off major upset as rampant dubs dismantle Louth. Mayo were stunned, says Roy Curtis, by Roscommon and Castlebar as Dublin launched their drive for 5 with a 26-point drubbing of Louth. Cormac Costello scoring 112. Next then to Sun Sport. Picture here of Gary Ringrose kissing the Pro 14 trophy. And a picture of Neil Lennon as well lifting the Scottish Cup. Another day in paradise, the headline. And then Qatar hero Silva, star on verge of shock Gulf move. So David Silva, they're saying here, could have played his final game for Manchester City. He's still only 32, David Silva. But the word is that a club in Qatar are willing to give him £12 million a year tax-free. So that seems to be giving David Silva pause for thought. Sunday Mirror Sport. Oh, I've just done that. That's Neil Lennon. The cup is mine. Sorry. Star Sport Sunday. Red Licht. Manchester United apparently have out-muscled the mighty Barcelona for Matthias de Ligt, which would certainly transform their fortune. £65 million, they reckon. 240 grand a week. Not bad for a 19-year-old. And then Ruben Dias as well is on the Manchester United radar. Ole goes for Dias. The back page of Sports Star Sunday. And then finally, what do we have here in the Sunday Times? Picture of Leinster celebrating behind Sean O'Brien lifting the trophy. Happy ending. Leinster sign off for the summer with Pro 14 final win over Glasgow. And then two different stories on the front page here of the Sunday Times. So on the right-hand side, revealed Quinn's big plan for Irish game. Paul Rowan here. They've had a look at the 31-page blueprint that Niall Quinn has put together with various other people. It lists out a number of big targets. The Football in Ireland Visionary Group is what they're calling themselves. Some of the targets include Declan, Ireland qualifying for the semi-finals of the World Cup by 2038.
Okay.
You got to dream. You got to dream big.
You have to have ambitions, you know.
They also want to have a League of Ireland team qualify for the group stages of the Champions League by 2027. Quite an exact year, I would think. Yeah. 2038, you have to pick a World Cup, but 2027 is the year, and not a day later when they'll have a League of Ireland team in the Champions League. Look good on them to aim big. So basically there's going to be a public forum on Friday. Shane Ross will be there, and Niall Quinn will present some of their ambitions. This, interestingly, we might touch on it briefly in a moment. this is no longer now for Niall Quinn just about what to do with the League of Ireland. This is every aspect of Irish football, right from summer festivals linking up with Gael Talks right through to what to do at the very top level, international level. And then a final one, different story as well. Casement Park will be a venue for the 2030 bid. So you might have seen that Northern Ireland, the UK, bidding for the 2030 World Cup, and it was thought that there would be no football in Northern Ireland, but it now turns out that they reckon Casement Park will be a very viable option come 2030, despite all the delays there. They are your Sunday papers headlines. Just to start on that Niall Quinn vision for Irish football thing, I just want to read you a piece without telling you who wrote it first, if that's okay, listeners. So, I mean, Irish football is in turmoil. It starts off, in less than a fortnight, Ireland face two important soccer games. Denmark, even little Gibraltar, must be rubbing their hands in glee. Goes on to say, God knows what new manager Mick McCarthy feels about the shenanigans of his employers, the FAI. Inquiries, reviews, audits galore, being held to investigate recent events. Government funding halted. Sponsors of the game watching anxiously. UEFA have ridden to the rescue, promising funding in the face of financial stress. The players saying little, but must be bewildered about the fate of Irish soccer. Declan Rice, torn between playing for Ireland or England, can only be thanking his lucky stars he didn't opt for an Irish team led by the FAI. And so it continues, and on it goes. Written by, I mean, you would think, maybe Eamon Sweeney, maybe Tommy Conlon, sharpening the knife and having a little, I'm going to have a little cut at the FAI this week. That is written by the Minister for Sport, Shane Ross, in the main section of the Sunday Independent, and he's having a bloody good time. Am I just wrong to think the tone of this is odd? Someone texted me this morning, a colleague here in News Talk said, it's like Boris Johnson taken to, writing in one of his pieces. It's a weird kind of almost joyful relish that he's talking about the whole thing with.
Well, I suppose it's for someone who's under the mistaken impression that sport is supposed to be fun and jolly, and you adopt this tone of kind of bantery kind of tone. Of course, this is completely false impression. It's a matter of deep seriousness. But look, I guess Shane considers that, quite rightly, I suppose, that you will never go wrong by having a crack at the FAI.
I think he's seen which way the wind is blowing.
Yeah, kind of.
Political own goal jumps to mind.
I mean, it is tragic.
Open goal.
His court, his much needed reforms of the Irish judicial system, have been, I suppose, stymied by vested interests. But I think he's okay on this one. I think he feels he's more or less a free run here.
Well, the two things I saw him do this week: one, this column, and we'll continue with it in a second, and also then doing what I think 3 out of 5 politicians have done this week, which is find a swing somewhere, sit in it, and do that kind of thing. So he was up to those two bits this week.
I have to say that of the two pieces, right, there is perhaps a little more kind of wisdom in that one, such as it is, than in the one you read beforehand, the one about Quinn's big plan for Irish game, right? By simply saying that, having one League of Ireland team qualify for the group stages of the Champions League by 2027, the only thing we know about football is that you can't plan beyond next Tuesday, right? It's demonstrably absurd. There are no 5-year plans. Everyone who comes in with a 5-year, Gerard Houllier had a 5-year plan. It's like the old Mike Tyson line. Everybody has a plan until they get a punch in the nose.
Is it different at international level? Like, didn't Germany come up with a plan after they failed around the turn of the century and revolutionised things?
No, I don't think so. I mean, these things should be normal. These things should be just normal, right? That if you have a system, you try to be good. I doubt if Germany are not like Ireland anyway. I don't think there's ever a valid comparison can be made between German football and ours, right? Yeah. But just this notion that to actually name a date, right? Qualifying for the semi-finals of the World Cup by 2038. Well, we got to the quarter-final in 1990, so who knows? You never know. I mean, it's kind of ludicrous to be, but that's the way the corporate world works,
it is,
right?
Yeah.
They're always at that stuff.
And they have to do a bit of prognosing. I think deep down Niall Quinn might know 2027 as the date for Champions League qualification.
And driving
might
change.
Be a bit strange, but I think he understands. He'll be presenting to Shane Ross. This is kind of the way this whole thing has to work.
Oh no, I mean, I'm sure you'll find in the words drive change. This will drive change, right? You have to have that in as well.
Crucial, yeah.
So it's just the format of the way the modern world works in that kind of culture, I suppose.
You're a fan of,
I'm not a fan of it as such, but I accept it. I acknowledge it.
Just to elaborate on Shane Ross, I'll get your thoughts in a sec, Gav. He says, we were appalled by the arrogance shown by the FAI board at the Joint Oireachtas Committee on Sport. He talks about this National Stakeholders Forum in Dublin's Mansion House Friday, May 31st. He says, we want Friday's forum to usher in a departure in Irish soccer, led from the grassroots, not by a small group of people who've been in charge for too long. And he does, by the way, later on mention how himself and Brendan Griffin look forward to hearing the sincere but seldom heard views of voices of Irish soccer, such as Niall Quinn, Brendan Menton and Pat Fenlon. He says the League of Ireland will be given the respect it deserves. I suppose the headline-grabbing news is that he is not impressed with Noel Mooney's appointment, who has taken charge over the next 6 months. He says the FAI appointed Noel Mooney in the face of the opposition, not only of Sport Ireland, but also the government. Recent days, the FAI have been desperately trying to spin this retrograde appointment to the media as a prudent development. He says public confidence in the FAI, already at its lowest ebb, will now hit rock bottom. The decision, writes Shane Ross, to install Mooney was a backward step. The Irish people have a right to know why the top brass of the FAI choose him to take the role of general manager, in brackets, chief executive by another name. He goes on to say, Mooney is Irish, former devoted employee of the FAI, now working for UEFA. There was no known selection process, no interview for his shock appointment. The FAI board sought him out for the job. They nearly all know him of old. If this cynical manoeuvre succeeds, they will feel eminently comfortable with him. He knows the FAI ropes. Quite strong there on Mooney.
Yeah, and look, I think that he is articulating a concern that a lot of people would have, because the FAI are moving on, but it's a hard sell when you have a Noel Mooney who used to work with the FAI, marketing the League of Ireland, and then left for UEFA, calling John Delaney an inspiration, and he turned up at the AGM in 2017 and said, the FAI is one of our best run associations in Europe. And there's also the problem, a famous FAI problem that has been a problem for the last couple of months. They haven't had a press conference about it. They're promising a sit-down with Mooney and President Donald Conway early in June, but they just did an interview. There's a 50-minute interview with Cathal Dervin, the Director of Communications, on the FAI YouTube site with him, and he says, I'm not interested in the Chief Executive job, I'm here for 6 months and I'll go. But why don't you just put him in front of the wider press? Because the FAI have an image problem with appointing Mooney, and it makes it easy for us to write this piece. And Eamon Sweeney in the back of the sports section of the Sindo sums it up, is the FAI don't seem to care what you think. They don't seem to care what anyone in this country thinks. UEFA are paying the Abbottstown piper at the moment, so theirs is the only tune which matters. So I just wish, it's a tough sell, basically, to bring Mooney in, given his past links. I do want to say something about Shane Ross, because Ross does mention 2 years ago, I'm quoting now, he reappeared from UEFA back at his old stomping ground, the familiar pasture of the FAI AGM. His praise of the board was cringeworthy. The FAI, he declared, is one of our most progressive and well-run federations. It really is a super federation, and you can be proud of yourselves, the board and all the members here. Wow, he finishes. Yeah. But I just would, Shane Ross then was on, I don't necessarily believe that Ross should believe that praise of the FAI should disavow, shouldn't make your opinion not matter here, because Ross himself was on 100%. Was on News Talk. He said, he was asked, because this was, I think it was on with Pat Kenny, I think.
It was Jonathan Healy filling in for Pat Kenny, and he was asked about John Delaney and the FAI.
Yes.
We're talking October territory last year.
It was after O'Neill and Keane had been fired, and there was this wider, and it's actually when Niall Quinn started talking about we need a new vision, and there was this petition to get rid of John Delaney. And he was asked about John Delaney, and he said, my own experience actually on the ground, I have to say, a weekend experience, is that the fans are very enthusiastic of what the FAI is doing, and they think that the FAI is doing a very good job. And then Jonathan Healy in that discussion said, are you sure? John Delaney, there's no issues there? And Ross was, no, it's all. Don't hear.
I hear great stuff. Seems to do a fantastic job at grassroots, and it's all great. He's run a million miles away from that now. He's not certainly highlighting that he thought that, less than 6 months ago?
And he was slow to come out back when, around the Oireachtas committees and so on, when all the politicians were having a go. He was notably slow to... He was one of the last to come out. So, look, I'm not saying that what he's saying here isn't fair. There are, it's just a bad PR look that Noel Mooney, who has been so associated with the FAI for so long, is this guy. And what's he doing? We don't really No, I mean,
I didn't bother to watch, frankly, the FAI TV interview with him.
I watched.
I presume it wasn't a grilling, or did he go to great depths about?
Look, he was asked. I mean, he was asked about the various things that people will have concerns about. He was asked about, your comments at the FAI AGM. They didn't mention John Delaney by name, and they didn't mention what the comments were. And he talked about, in many ways, like at grassroots level, the FAI are doing loads of good work, and it's just a pity that all that's going on above them is overshadowing this great work.
Yeah,
it's the same stuff we've heard all the time.
No, it's true. Look, Shane Ross wasn't the first to get stuck into the FAI, same as he wasn't the first this week to sit in a swing, but he sure as hell is enjoying doing both.
Yeah,
that's in the main section of the Sunday Independent. It is on page 8. Now, let's go to the Mail on Sunday, because if I don't go there, Declan Lynch is going to bring us there. It's already open. He wants to talk of nothing else. This, in fairness, is pretty interesting. So, Mail on Sunday, page 65, Joe Bernstein. We have all been under the fairly solid assumption that Ole at the wheel is very much an Alex Ferguson endorsed idea. And yet Joe Bernstein has spoken to various people very close to Alex Ferguson, and it's, one of many things we have wrong. Ferguson thinks it should have been Pochettino all the way, and he feels marginalised quite badly, it seems, by Man United. So for people who haven't read this, Declan, maybe sum up some of the key things.
Well, it's a great piece of British journalism, by Joe Bernstein. Like Gavin and I were looking at it and just thinking, that is just great. It's a great piece, right? Because it tells you something which is more or less the opposite of what almost everyone had assumed, right? And it presents this picture of Alex Ferguson increasingly, unhappy at this, feeling marginalised, feeling that nobody talks to him at United. There's a great line, so a sense of hurt that the club he helped to establish no longer calls on his counsel. I mean, I hear Marlon Brando saying that, you no longer come to me for advice. It's wonderful. Like it just he mentions like the power brokers Woodward, Richard Arnold, and Matt Judge never pick up the phone. Right? Now, what he thinks of these guys, I don't know, but I think there's a quote. He says, I think they should shift the people who are in charge of the club back to the business of the club, back down to London. So his essential view of the people running Manchester United is that they should go back to London, right? Which is excellent. He gives voice to more or less everything that people think about United, oddly enough, which is that the whole thing has run aground. The club has become dysfunctional. Except we all thought that they had looked to him for guidance, and in fact, apparently not. He really wanted Pochettino.
It's surprising,
and apparently loves Pochettino, and said Manchester United should always go for the best out there. And the best available, in this case, Tottenham's Mauricio Pochettino. He's on about the way they sign players, that he's privately sceptical. It's great, isn't it? He's privately sceptical about the club's worldwide scouting network, believing too many cooks spoil the broth, and that it ends up with compromise buys like £52 million Fred from Shakhtar Donetsk. It always comes back to Fred.
Yeah,
really,
Fred's a big stick to beat them with. Not just Jemba.
The deep misfortune of him being called Fred can't be overestimated. You know?
Because I was just sort of saying to you guys before we came on air that the picture after the PSG game away, where there was Solskjaer and Ferguson and Eric Cantona hands around each other, it just kind of copper fastened this general sense that Ferguson approved of this, that this was like almost a DNA heritage move, and this was the linking of the past and the future, and they were probably meeting him for advice, and he's around the training ground all the time, and Ferguson says, Bernstein says, I don't know if Ferguson's contributed to this piece, while holding nothing against Solskjaer, someone Ferguson has met a couple of times for coffee near his home, the truth is the pair are not as close as the image. Indeed, Ferguson increasingly felt isolated and out of touch with what has happened at United since he left, and it doesn't seem like they're meeting really that often in terms of, well, what do you think I should do at the weekend, Sir Alex? And they also just say, look, it's a tough time for Alex Ferguson, the brain hemorrhage and the surgery. There have been consequences to his life. He's less independent, he's not able to drive, and so on. So it does cut a pretty sad story, Ferguson kind of still turning up to Old Trafford, but feeling like I'm pretty much on the sidelines.
It also evokes this, like their absolute determination to do everything that Liverpool did wrong. Like he's like this Shankly-like figure, wondering why don't they involve me anymore. He says that he was criticised for like leaving a poor team when he left that, but he says no, that he disagrees completely. He said Moyes and Woodward ripped up the Fergie rule book from day one. Phelan, who had worked alongside Ferguson, was sent away. Wilfried Zaha was ignored by Moyes, who picked Adnan Januzaj as the better prospect, a judgment not borne out by history, with Zaha's current transfer valuation 4 times what Fergie paid for him.
Yeah.
So
just like Zaha was a great Fergie signing, it turns out.
But this is some absolutely classic Ferguson justification in here. Because what's missing from that, what Declan just read out there, who appointed David Moyes? Ferguson did. He's obviously an incredible football manager, but he's one of the great egotists of British public life of the 20th century. A guy who dedicated part of his farewell autobiography to explaining why they didn't sign Jordan Henderson. And there was the other story that I was thinking about this outside, that when they were re-signing Wayne Rooney, it actually says, he should have gone to Chelsea. He ended up getting that new contract. And
Ferguson wanted Rooney gone.
Yeah, but the Glazers texted him, okay, we've renegotiated this massive contract. And and as it would have worked out, he would have been making more than Ferguson. And Ferguson texted back, no one should be paid more at this club than I did. So this is like classic justification. And Ferguson, I do think that the main thing that Moyes had in his favour for that job was that he was Scottish. And he was this, another continuation of the Ferguson myth. Yeah. I have to say that it was his empire, and he just wanted to, keep on making it in his image. Yeah. And that leaves out the fact that he appointed David Moyes is kind of ludicrous. Also, there's to go back on what we were talking about, like Shankly. I mean, like repeating what happened at Liverpool, and Shankly would turn up at the training ground and be told, "You don't work here anymore. Please go home." Yeah. And he had to go watch Everton. And this is a really tragic final sentence. But after that, so there's a charity game between Man United and Bayern Legends this afternoon. So this is what this piece is kind of hooked around. But after that, because Ferguson's in the dugout, after that it will be back home to Wilmslow, catching up with the latest club news on MUTV and waiting for the phone to ring.
I think that's Joe Bernstein taking a bit of artistic license, to be fair. I don't think that's quite literally what will happen. Yeah,
F. Scott Fitzgerald, artistic license there. But history may record that one of their great misfortunes, I mean, that game against PSG, right, they took completely the wrong meaning out of that, because they really lost that tie, right? In almost every game of football played before that evening,
the expected goals,
they wouldn't have got that penalty near the end, right? It was a crazy decision, right? It was one of those things where my one sort of criticism of the VAR, this thing of slowing things down for handballs, life doesn't happen actually in slow motion. And yes, there was some minuscule sort of contact, that technically could be a penalty, but it would never ever have been given as a penalty. No one even on the pitch saw it, so they interpreted from that a glorious victory. They should have interpreted, in fact, we lost that one, right? But based on that, so that presumption, simply because they had been they were now in the next round of the competition for some bizarre reason, they thought that they'd won the match.
Frankly, I thought they were going to win the competition at that stage. That evening, I did think so. And the Spurs away win, the split strikers first half worked very well, but the lingering memory as time goes on is David De Gea making about 14 million saves in the second half.
But like that PSG, that famous game, you remember he played Eric Bailly at right back and had to take him off. It was a disaster.
Well, sorry, Bailly limped off.
Yeah,
and let the record show.
It was one of those. It was kind of an affected limp to get out of there with a bit of dignity intact. Yeah. But now that you have Ferguson out here, sorry, but he's not quoted directly.
No, he certainly isn't.
It's well sourced. He might be wrong, but it's pretty well sourced that a Pochettino would actually have been better. And, Pochettino has been talking about, I'll have to leave Spurs if we win the European Cup next Saturday. Yeah. I mean, is Solskjaer's position even before pre-season, not fatally undermined?
John Giles was on actually a couple of weeks ago, and he said, as brutal as it will be, and you will feel a bit sorry for Solskjaer, Manchester United should still be trying to hire Pochettino this summer. Yeah. The 40-50 million that you'll have to pay Solskjaer to fire him will be, small beans in comparison.
This is absolutely true. It's one of the terrible kind of habits of football that when they make a mistake, they feel that they have to go through it to the end, to some sort of logical conclusion, so that they can't just say, look, we just got it wrong, right? We made a terrible mistake here, but we're not going to sort of go through another 6 months of failure just to sort of see if it turns at all.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? Like
true.
they don't seem to be able to do that. Kind of those particularly big clubs, you know,
there's a certain sense of your own ego. You know, you hired the guy. Did I get this wrong?
But is it not a more executive thing to do to actually stand above that and to say, look, I'm big enough to say I got it wrong? Could they not parlay it like that?
Look, I'm sure in the NBA they do deal with that.
I think that Solskjaer might start parking in Ferguson's car park spot after he reads this.
Yeah, it's poor old Alex Ferguson. Joe Bernstein, page 65, Mail on Sunday. Now, something completely different. We will come back to football because, in fairness, actually, there is some brilliant Champions League final build-up right across the paper, some really good stuff. First, I want to check in with Mossy Quinn. Mossy, we're about 29 minutes into this game. How are things going?
They're going shaky for the Laois goalkeeper there. Graham Brody gave a very poor short kick out and nearly gave a goal away, which would have been exactly what Westmeath needed, because after half an hour played, it's Laois 7 points, Westmeath 2 points, and the two Westmeath scores are both frees from Jerry Egan. The first one came after 22 minutes. Laois have been excellent defensively. They're getting bodies back, but they've also had 4 or 5 brilliant blocks. But up front, it's been all about Evan O'Carroll's hit 5 points, 3 frees and 2 brilliant scores from play, and Paul Kingston, the other corner's got 2 from play. So at the moment, good game, but Westmeath have been very poor. They'd be very disappointed with their opening 30 minutes. 7-2 to Laois.
Yeah, we weren't expecting this. Westmeath have beaten Laois the 2 times they've played them this year. We thought this would be nip and tuck. Is it generally close in terms of the cut and thrust of the game, and it's just the scoreboard, or are Laois well on top?
Laois are on top defensively. Westmeath are really struggling. Laois are getting more bodies back than I anticipated. Now Westmeath are playing into a strong enough breeze, and it doesn't lend itself to shooting from 35-40 yards, and they're trying to work it in. They've been turned over, but like I said, some of the Laois defending has been excellent. I know Colin Begley's had 2 turnovers. Cornerback Gareth Dillon's had 2 brilliant blocks as well. Really good blocks when you expected the forwards to score. So they're probably been, and then just Evan O'Carroll and Paul Kingston up front have been very slick. The ball, not a huge amount of ball going in, but when it's going in, they're winning it, and they're being very efficient with it.
Okay, Mossy Quinn there at O'Connor Park. Laois 7 points, Westmeath 2 after half an hour. Up in the Ulster Championship quarter-final at Brewster Park. Donegal 3 points from Anna 2. We're still reviewing the papers here. Declan Lynch and Gavin Cooney in studio. I said I'll come to the Champions League final build-up, and I will, but just for something totally different. Page 9 of the Sunday Times. George O'Connor, Wexford legend. People will remember George O'Connor very well, of a certain vintage. His final season for Wexford was the year they won the All-Ireland. He fell to his knees and prayed. That amazing picture on the full-time whistle, just absolutely iconic. That was in his 17th and final season. And he's speaking here with Dennis Walsh in the Sunday Times. Fantastic interview. Still very recognisable, you know. George O'Connor still looks like himself. He looks great. He looks healthy. Looks in phenomenal shape in the picture. And it turns out he's been through a really rocky 4 or 5 years, George O'Connor. Wexford hero George O'Connor has got his life on a good footing again after it had reached its lowest ebb. It's a really good piece. Gav, I know you were tweeting about it first thing this morning. It obviously caught your eye.
Yeah.
It starts off by painting a sense of George O'Connor right from childhood as this adventurous, busy, curious, happy person. He says at one point, I always looked on life as a magical journey. I always thought of it as magical. This is very much O'Connor's attitude to life for the vast majority of it.
Yeah, and there's this great image of him and his brothers swinging from vines, more or less, that they made themselves in the back garden, pretending that they're Tarzan. And when you see Dennis Walsh's name in a piece, and you expect, well, obviously Dennis will be the best articulated person, the person best able to articulate himself in this piece. And then you read like O'Connor grew up to be a hero, and you're like, okay, this is a typical Dennis Walsh piece. And then you realise George O'Connor is this fantastic way of talking about life. It's absolutely terrific. So he talks about he struggled with a kind of depression ultimately, and he described it as follows. They said I was burnt out. They called it depression, anxiety. Every ailment has to be labelled now. That's what they called it. It's like the electrical circuit in a house. The whole thing was overloaded, and then bang, the trip switches went. In my mind, I was throwing stuff into a pressure cooker because I was in such a hurry to do A, B, C, D, E, F, the whole way down to Z. The things I couldn't process straight away, I threw into the pressure cooker, and next thing, the lid blew off.
That was a hell of a last line. The things I couldn't process away, I threw into a pressure cooker, next thing the lid blew off. You could muse on that for a couple of minutes over a cup of coffee. And it all started, he said, about 5 years ago. He didn't see it coming, writes Walsh. In his day job as a Leinster council coach, he was heading to a school in Curracloe when he blacked out behind the wheel. Car went through a gate, across a field, ended up on top of a ditch. I only had a few cuts, but I knew something wasn't right. And it was on the back of that he got diagnosed. And, you know, he says himself, some people recover very quickly, others don't. It took me 4 years. I went everywhere. I went to doctors, went to hypnotists, you name it. And talks about just the level of darkness to the point where he couldn't really do anything. He was in bed. What did he say about his diet? You're not able to eat. I was living on eggs and milk and coffee. I couldn't watch television. I couldn't read the papers. I couldn't do anything. You go to a place of darkness and blackness, really lonely because you can't engage with people. The only trip switch that didn't go off in my mind was the Sacred Heart lamp. Only for that I was in trouble. My faith kept me on this earth. You're thinking, wow.
Yeah. And it ultimately becomes like an interview, is like the importance of religion, a kind of a private religion in someone's life. Because obviously, you know, no fan of like religious dogma, and that's kind of more or less been swept away from most of Irish life at this stage. But it does remind you that, you know, religion is intensely important to people in private ways. And, you know, we all need to assemble stories to kind of to make sense of the world and get ourselves through it. And it's a reminder of the importance of that. And I think of having respect for people who have that.
It adds a real resonance to the picture of him. They have the picture of him top of the page, kind of now, arms folded, in great shape, and they also have a picture of him on his knees, All-Ireland final whistle in '96, praying. It takes on an extra resonance when you know what happened subsequently.
And there's also, like, it's not without kind of mad, like, 80s, 90s hurling madness. You know, the fingers I broke in the end, I didn't even bother going to the hospital. Well, you've cows to milk, so you just kind of keep at it. He now talks about how all his fingers are crooked. One is pointed to New Ross and the other is pointing towards Enniscorthy. He nearly quit in 1993 after a Leinster final replay, and then he lost a league final after 2 replays, and then he had his 2 front teeth knocked out into a match, and then the only person he told about his plans to quit was the dentist, and obviously Dennis says whatever the dentist said, he talked him out of it.
Yeah, because his hands were broken 17 times.
In terms of his recovery, no eureka moment is what he says. There was no sudden, I'm over it. He said Dennis writes kind of beautifully, he lived in the giant embrace of his family and friends, and eventually things got better. He couldn't exactly say how or when. There was no eureka moment. He just kept going until he stumbled upon the right way. He said, I found a formula. Wouldn't impose the formula on anyone because it just depends on your journey. I know I needed buckets and buckets and buckets of love and attention and encouragement and compassion. And he says, I did hear the old cliche, listen, when you cop onto yourself, look at everything you have, you need a kick in the backside. Those lines do not work. And talked about Father Jim Finn and Liam Griffin. People know Liam Griffin, obviously. They encouraged O'Connor to return to the land, which he started doing, you know, getting back working with landscaping, was it called? Company? Landscaping business, yeah. Landscaping, sorry, yeah. I read that as scraping. I thought that was strange, yeah. Landscaping business. And he talked about, you know, first day, couldn't even lift the empty wheelbarrow, no energy, the remnants of anxiety. It paralyses. Yeah,
you see, it has that thing as well. Like, most of us kind of assume that for that to happen, something has to happen. You know, you get a sort of a trauma of some kind, or something terrible happens in your life, or whatever. Whereas what's really kind of mysterious or troubling about any of this stuff is that he was just driving along in his automobile one day, you know. And that's the really kind of intractable part about these things, that, like, you know, nothing bad happened type of thing, you know. Yeah. In fact, everything seemed to be grand. You know?
I know, like, that is one of the more, I mean, look, circumstances often do play a part, but that really is, like, I mean, if anyone was in any doubt, I don't think anyone is in 2019, that this is a proper illness as real as any physical bone break or misnomer you might suffer. Like, what an example that is, that he was literally just in his car and then boom, he's on his back for 4 years.
Yeah.
And it's the fact that it's a steady, like you said, there's no eureka moment, it's just a steady recovery of, you know, every day.
Walsh comments on how good he looks. Like, in the picture, he is ripped. He looks fantastic. He's tanned and biceps bulging and he's in great shape.
Yeah, and he doesn't actually name, he said, they said I was burnt out.
Yeah.
They called it depression, anxiety, every ailment has to be labelled now. He doesn't actually call it that himself, you know.
He doesn't fully know what it was, maybe a mixture, who knows? Yeah. So that's George O'Connor, 60 at the end of the year. He says, what I went through, wouldn't wish it on anyone, but to be where I am today, I'd do it all again. I'm in a better place now than ever before. I wake up in the morning, I pull back the blinds, I can't wait for the day to start. Dennis Walsh finishes off with amen. So I hadn't expected that. Page 9 of the Sunday Times. Well worth a read there, Dennis Walsh with George O'Connor. Quick mention, by the way, if we're on GAA, Joe Brolly has made it very clear Mayo are not winning
Mayo. God. I actually thought that they might win a Connacht game of significance this year.
Yeah. The Mayo season ticket holder gets the best value for money year in, year out.
But they just, because it was this clash of the rugby and I had the rugby on TV, because I actually thought that Mayo might actually, win this by more than a score.
Same, I was rugby and then I just thought, I'll flick over and see how they're going.
Like all things, Mayo become the most interesting part of the day, is kind of a summer tradition here. I do will admit that Joe Brolly's probably right here. It all boiled down to the last 5 minutes. Would Mayo have the composure to work the score like the Dubs, or are they mentally weak? Are they carried away by the hero worship that accompanies them everywhere? Andy Moran had come on as a sub and was greeted like Caesar returning from the Battle of Alasia. Only the crowd didn't throw flowers onto the field. And in the 72nd minute, with the match deadlocked, he took possession in a poor position near the end line on the left-hand side of the posts. He had options everywhere, and this was a crucial possession. What would Dean Rock have done, or Kieran Kilkenny, or Niall Scully? Well, they wouldn't have done what Andy did. He went for the hero point and was easily blocked down.
What's his final line again? I don't have it open, but I remember it was like...
it's All-Ireland champions, don't make me laugh.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's brutal stuff, but only that it has the ring of truth, which, we don't see too often, really. I mean, it is true.
Did you watch some of this last night, did I hear?
I did, actually, yeah. It was remarkable. I don't even know if I should mention this, but this goalkeeper, right?
Oh, well, yeah. I suppose you can't not mention it, unfortunately.
Well, Brolly is straight in here. He says James Horn went for his old friend in goals,
Rob Henley,
which laid the foundations for. I'm almost I don't even want to say, but which laid the foundations for Roscommon's victory. That's the first paragraph. But I saw that, right?
Yeah.
I did. I mean, you're
apparent to you.
You know what I mean? Throughout the game, things were happening that were wrong, and it is extraordinary. That they keep making these basic mistakes, which seem to be kind of not in any way necessary. They seem to be very easily rectifiable, and yet they keep happening. Have you any idea? Well, you've studied this, Joe, maybe a great deal more than I have.
They are just a phenomenal team. I was very surprised at their lack of composure in the last 5-10 minutes. I would have thought with all their experience, they were fine. Rob Henley gave away some goals, and then Mayo regrouped and went ahead, and you kind of thought, all things being equal, the better team wins now. But somehow they got pegged back, and when Brolly draws that comparison with Dublin, imagine them in those last final few minutes, the level of composure. It's really hard to argue with that.
I thought that a point would come, exactly. I thought that they are clearly kind of a far more experienced team and everything. And
100%.
Usually what happens is, after a certain amount of back and forth, the superior team then kind of does what they do.
They start to win the arm wrestle.
They move on and they're basically they win.
Yeah.
Right.
No, they were winning. They were once again winning the arm wrestle, and then somehow Roscommon came back again and put them on the floor.
But it's Mayo's basic skills left them.
They 36 scoring chances, they took 17.
But even, because I only really, with the rugby on, I only really watched the last maybe 10 minutes of this really intensely.
Yeah.
You had, Colin Boyle just soloed the ball and just kind of dropped it and lost it. Lee Keegan had such an easy scoring chance from, I'd say 30 metres out max, and he dropped it short. Keegan then came forward a couple of minutes later, gave this awful pass to Andy Moran that ended in Moran fouling, or whatever the Roscommon defender was. He got black-carded and couldn't have kicked that last point.
Yeah.
And then Kevin McLaughlin missing the free, and you're like, Jim O'Connor is on the pitch, isn't he the captain? You think
I guess they wanted a left footer. Jeez, don't miss it at the near post. Give it a chance. Give it a chance to come back in.
Because I've been full in on the doomed Mayo struggle. This idea that this is what they crave more than anything, but they're just destined to always pushing a rock up a hill. But I'm now beginning to think that they're just actually not good enough.
Yeah, you'd write them off at your peril, obviously, but it's a long way to the Super 8s now and beyond. James Horn's obviously a brilliant manager, but a lot of those players, even though they hate it being said, have serious miles on the clock.
It's a much better life, though, playing more matches, isn't it?
Do you know what? Anytime they come in here, you almost talk to them as if they're bereaved, and you say, how are you doing? Are you all right? And all of them to a man say, What are you talking about? We're having the time of our lives. We play loads of matches. Our fans adore us. You know, we are heroes. The whole country quite likes us. We get to play in Croke Park in these epic games. Would we have liked to have won? Yes. But like, life is good. There's a reason we keep going back every January. So I think they don't feel as sorry for themselves as the rest of us.
Like Roscommon will probably, their next match will be in 6 months' time or something like that. Is that the way it works?
Yeah, probably. Galway in the final.
Right.
Here, are we brave enough to talk about the Leinster Football Championship briefly?
Very briefly, yeah, then I have to go to an ad break.
But just a way of kind of highlighting that kind of a sick joke that it has become. It's like Dermot Crowe's piece in the front of the Sindo. The lead in it, like the lead line to describe the most interesting thing that's happened, is that Paul Mannion got sent off. You know, it's not the result. It's just this vaguely different thing happened. It's like, you know, I mean, if a dog ran onto the pitch now in the semi-final, that would be presumably the lead. In whatever cricket score they run up in the Leinster semi-final.
Yeah, that's true. His opening line is Dublin's Paul Mannion was sent off as the All-Ireland champions opened their bid for a record 5th title. Like they don't give the score until the third last paragraph, where they just have to mention it was 5:21 to 10 points.
Just squeeze that in there
with 14 men.
Yeah. We'll take a short break. We'll check in with Mossy on the far side, see how things are going at half-time, and then we're back for more on the papers. There's some good stuff. The Champions League build-up's really, really good. James Milner's done a great interview with Ollie Holt. There's David Walsh on Lance Armstrong. Owen Morgan, captaining the English cricketers ahead of the World Cup. There's a big piece in the Observer, profile piece, so we'll get to all that in just a moment.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball. Tech Talk with Jess Kelly.
Coming up this week, I head to Bloom in the Park to get a first look at the techie-themed gardens on offer this year. We'll put 4 wrist wearables through their paces and learn about education platform iSchool.
Tech Talk with Jess Kelly.
Download the podcast now or tune in this evening at 6.
On News Talk.
Have a great afternoon with Harvey Norman, the #1 in Ireland for beds, mattresses and bedroom furniture.
Go, Harvey, go! Nissan's latest innovation is the van that never gets old. Buy any 192 Nissan van and replace it with a new van every 3 years from just €49 per week ex-VAT. Plus get 3 years free motor tax and 3 free services. Visit nissan.ie. Nissan. Innovation that excites. Finance offers for business users only. Finance is provided by AIB Leasing Limited by way of a leasing agreement. Allied Irish Banks plc and AIB Leasing Limited, trading as AIB Finance and Leasing, are regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland. Eligibility, lending criteria, terms and conditions apply.
When your summer sounds like this, instead of this, you need to find a way to escape the misery of hay fever. New Nasacort Nasal Spray is a unique once-a-day hay fever treatment whose special formula stays where it's sprayed, providing effective relief from congestion, sneezing, and an itchy, runny nose. Start each summer's day the Nasacort way, and you could be on a path to your perfect summer. Ask your pharmacist for details. Contains triamcinolone acetonide. Always read the label.
Does your office need a facelift? A new look reception area? A modern open plan office layout? Perhaps some stylish new glazed partitions? Or a cool staff canteen? Not sure where to start? Whatever your need, Hunt Office Interiors has the expertise to guide you. With showrooms in Dublin, Limerick, Cork and Belfast. Why not talk to our team about transforming your office environment? Contact Hunt Office Interiors today for a free consultation. Call us on 1890 771100 or email interiors@huntoffice.ie. Hunt Office, for all things office.
The political landscape has shifted, but what does it mean for you? In Monday's Irish Independent and independent.ie, we take you beyond the headlines with our election special magazine. Get all the results county by county and the definitive analysis from Ireland's leading political commentators. Plus, how will the results change the power play between Leo Varadkar and Micheál Martin? Don't miss the election special, only in Monday's Irish Independent and independent.ie. Take a fresh look.
Niall Rodgers and Chic, live at Dublin St Anne's Park this summer. With special guests, Kaiser Chiefs. Bank Holiday Sunday, June 2nd. Tickets $49.90 on sale now. Additional charges may apply, subject to licence. The legendary Niall Rodgers and Chic bring their spectacular live show to St Anne's Park. Tickets on sale now.
I'm not the kind of person who wants to sit in a metal box. I don't want to slowly die in traffic. I want to ride a motorbike. And I want to keep riding a motorbike. I don't want to suddenly die in traffic. I'm not the kind of person who wants to lie in a wooden box.
Biking is a joy. Don't let it kill you. Half of biker fatalities are caused by motorcyclist speeding, so ease off the throttle and keep within the speed limit. From the Road Safety Authority.
If you're excited about getting a new car, then Nissan's great 192 offers will really move you. For a limited period, you can choose from either really enticing low-rate finance or up to €5,500 scrappage on selected models. Search Nissan offers or visit your local Nissan dealer today. Nissan. Innovation that excites. T's and C's apply.
The Sunday Papers on Off the Ball.
Now, welcome back. So we'll get back into the papers in just one moment. Mossy Quinn, half-time in Tullamore. So we weren't quite expecting this. This was going to be billed as a nip-and-tuck game. And at half-time in the Leinster Championship quarter-final, it's Westmeath 2 points, Laois 8 points. Are they worthy 6-point leaders?
They are, Joe. Yeah, they've been the better team. There's no doubt. Westmeath will be very frustrated with their attacking performance. Laois have got bodies back, but they've kind of they've carried the ball into traffic a number of times. They've had a high number of turnovers. Now, I'm sure if they're looking at it critically themselves, they'd put a lot of blame on themselves. And obviously, Laois on the flip side, I'd say it's good defending. So it's not as if they've had a high number of wides. Like, they're struggling to get shots off. Now, they are playing into a breeze that has definitely picked up as the half has gone on, and now there's a significant breeze there now. So they will have it for the second half, but their movement, their option taking, and certainly a support for guys coming off the shoulder is going to have to improve if they're going to make any inroads.
Yeah. Any standout players?
Evan O'Carroll's been the best player in the pitch, I'd say. Corner forward for Laois. He's kicked 5 points, 3 frees. He was fouled for one himself. His 2 points from play were excellent. His last one in particular, the Westmeath had a sweeper back in front, and it was a really nicely played ball by John O'Loughlin that bounced just in between the sweeper and Evan's own man, and he came in. He's a big guy, and he kind of cleaned house. So he kind of, not only did he win the ball, he took the sweeper out of it, threw a nice dummy and sailed it over the bar. It was an excellent bit of forward play. So John O'Loughlin's been busy around the middle. Laois defenders, Colin Begley's been good at centre back. He's had a couple of turnovers, in particular on Kieran Martin. Kieran Martin, for the last couple of years with Westmeath, he's a really powerful runner. He's a strong guy carrying the ball, and what I like about when Begley sizes him up, he doesn't go in and look for contact because Kieran Martin wants that. He wants you to come in and he'll just bounce off you and go, whereas Begley's waiting for him to have to play the ball, and the minute he solos it or hops it, then he's going in to tackle him, and he's done that smartly a couple of times. And the Laois cornerback Gareth Dillon, both defensively, he's had a couple of blocks, and then attacking, he's one of the guys driving Laois out of defence. So they've probably been the best players on show. Even if Laois don't score in the second half, Westmeath are going to have to treble their first half tally just to draw level with them. So clearly, in the face of it, they're going to need a major rethink. They're going to need goals, most likely. Do they have, looking at that, do they have 10, 12 points in them in the second half? It's hard to see on the basis of it. Like, I spoke before the game about being excited to see John Heslin, Kieran Martin, Jerry Egan, and we haven't seen them at all. Like, Heslin barely had any impact on the game, if at all. Like, I'd say he's had 2-3 possessions maybe. Kieran Martin has had it, but again, he's getting turned over, he's carrying it into trouble, he's not getting support runners with him, and Jerry Egan has kicked the 2 frees. He missed one very straightforward one that he would have been disappointed with as well, but again has had no impact from play. So they're kind of playing into Laois's hands. Laois are getting bodies back, and like I said, some of the Westmeath forwards are going individually. They're trying to carry the ball into contact. Now maybe like into the wind, it was possibly difficult to take that shot from maybe 30-35 yards, whereas in the second half they will have that option, and those guys like Heslin in particular is a good shooter from distance, so is Jerry Egan. So, but they are going to have to create better options, and will they score 12 or 13 points? I'd imagine they probably will need a goal. You'd expect Laois now, they tried to hit them on the break even with the wind, and they'll do it even more so this half. They'll obviously try and get the ball back up to Paul Kingston. Was good in the corner as well. He got 2 early points from play, and so Westmeath will really have to up it. OK, Mossy, thanks very much. Mossy Quinn there, half time in Tullamore. Laois 8 points, Westmeath 2, and in Brewster Park, Ulster Championship quarter final, Donegal 5 points, Fermanagh 4 points, so 1 point lead for Donegal at half time. Champions League final build up. We have all sorts here. We have Ollie Holt with James Milner in the Mail on Sundays, really good. Joel Matip in the Sunday Times, excellent as well. There's a piece in the Sindo about Pochettino and his emotional side. Klopp and his paddle tennis love affair in the Sunday Times, page 4. All good stuff, actually. We might start with James Milner, who I think everyone quite likes at this stage.
Yeah, things I didn't know about James Milner, that he speaks Spanish to his children at home.
Isn't that impressive?
They were very young. For no particular reason except that he thought it was sort of challenging and he's always impressed by people who can kind of slip into another language, and therefore he's just using basic kind of phrases, like what do you want for breakfast or whatever in Spanish.
He knew it was working when he said to his 3-year-old in Spanish, "Go get me the towel," and she ran off and came back with a towel. He thought, good God.
Yeah.
But like learning Spanish, this is a staple of the want-away Liverpool player.
Yeah.
There's always, you'll get like the short online articles that'll have the players already learning Spanish and looking for a house. So perhaps, he probably won't play with Leo Messi, will he?
Yeah, but it also meant that he knew what Messi was saying to him at half time.
At the new camp.
At the new camp. Milner had shoulder charged Messi out into the touchline. Messi was waving imaginary yellow cards and all this, and Messi was verbally abusing him in the tunnel at half time, calling him a burro, which is donkey.
Sure is.
Milner, with his superior knowledge of the idioms, says I think it's also used in Spanish football as a general term for someone who goes around kicking people.
Yes, okay, so hatchet man maybe is...
Yeah, so he not only knows the term, he knows the kind of usages in various parts of Spain, but it brings in...
Messi doesn't come out of this brilliantly, by the way.
No, and the thing they don't mention here is that a key part, I think, of the whole great revival in the second leg, there was a really clear sense, I got anyway, from Liverpool, that they really felt they'd been bullied out of it in Barcelona. Most obviously, and in a way that was quite ignored by almost everybody, that for Messi's legendary free kick, he punched Fabinho. In order for the free kick, was actually him punching Fabinho in the face, right? Okay, not just punching him sort of on the arm. He punched him in the face, right? It was a sending off offence, for which, being so practiced in the dark arts, he got a free kick and scored that wonderful goal. Yeah. And it was really clear that Liverpool kind of felt that there was a kind of a rage in them in the second leg. And I think it wasn't just Suarez doing his usual stuff, right? It was I think Messi as well really got to them, I guess, from things like saying this stuff to Milner at half time, and also just the fact that nobody bothered to mention the fact that he had actually assaulted Fabinho. Yeah. In order to get the free, and it's maybe the vital ingredient in the way that they approached the second match, that they just didn't sort of see themselves as being there in order to kind of compete for a while and then let Leo steal in and score some lovely kind of winning goal. That they really kind of just challenged them, I guess, and stood up to them, I suppose.
I would have thought at some point when you're Lionel Messi and you've done so many extraordinary things on a football pitch that you just would forget some of them, i.e. nutmegging James Milner years ago. I can remember this nutmeg on the touchline. I think it was when Milner was still at Man City. I feel like it was at that stadium.
Yeah, Pep was in the crowd.
Pep was on a sabbatical at the time. Pep was
giving worship.
He was off, in New York and playing chess with Gary Kasparov and the boys and doing all that stuff. But he was in the stand when Messi nutmegged Milner and kind of covered his face. I can't even compute how good this guy is. But Milner says, I asked Messi if he was all right. This is in the tunnel, but he wasn't having it. I don't think he realised I understood his Spanish. He said, "That foul you did to Milner, that's because I nutmegged you."
Yeah, well, it was more or less the same spot. Not to get too mythic about it already, but it was near, like the near touchline, just over the halfway line to the right hand side as you're looking on TV.
Just what it is. It's a bit petty for Messi to be clinging on to this. Yeah. Does Messi walk around and see various people and go, nutmegged him, did that to him, did that to him? Years later, Milner in the end just kind of throws his hands up and says, "Look, not much I can do." But Messi seems like an angry little man going around giving out to everyone, calling them donkeys and in their face the whole time.
No, don't get me wrong, because I understand why someone like Messi needs to get free kicks by punching people in the face, right? Because all his life he would have been brutally, savagely kicked and all this. So like any really sort of brilliant player like that, they have to develop the dark arts in order to just survive, So yeah, so in a way, I'm not sort of judging him for punching Fabinho.
What about him going around calling him donkey?
But if you're as good as Messi, would you not have contempt for all these people?
I would, and I would have contempt for everyone around me. To be fair, I would think you're all donkeys if I was Messi. And
why would he single out James Milner? I think this is the thing.
Milner kicked him.
Who is not a donkey?
Interestingly, when he moved into his apartment in Newcastle, sparsely furnished, says Ollie Holt, there were no mirrors in the apartment. It was a year before he got around to buying one. Extraordinary.
But now he's the face now of Liverpool's Nivea campaign.
I just presume he was shaving and doing his business at the Newcastle training ground. Yeah. You wouldn't do that without a mirror, would you?
I've no idea.
His wife-to-be's mother, his future mother-in-law, bought him a present that Christmas with a pair of cufflinks and a tiny mirror on each one, and the inscription, "You're so vain," it said. Holt writes, the older he has become, the more respected. Milner is an antidote to so much. People admire his down-to-earth doggedness. They see that his success is hard-earned. He is all about what he does on the pitch. For him, image is nothing. I think he's become an incredibly respected and liked player over the last number of years.
But image is definitely something for him. You know, he's killed the boring James Milner Twitter account by, you know, just being more boring himself.
Yeah, he's outdone it with more humour almost at times.
Yeah, and he's a senior professional, and you know, it is said to be really important who the senior professionals are at a club. You know, and he, like Milner, just radiates kind of good practice and dedication and all the kind of good things, so that if you have these younger guys like Robertson or Trent Alexander-Arnold, they're seeing him as the kind of
the template,
rather than someone who isn't him, shall we say, right? But so I think that's really important for Liverpool, and for the fact that he's still there, he's still so prominent, you know.
Oh yeah, for sure. That's in the Mail on Sunday. Ollie Holt with James Milner. Various other pieces then, we'll come to Joe Matip in a second. I get the sense Liverpool are very relaxed out there because Matip was up for interview.
I worry about all this, you know. I worry about everything, Joe, as you know.
Yes,
but all of us Liverpool fans, we read these pieces and we start thinking about, you know, part of us is now out there, you know, in
Costa del Sol.
The Costa del Sol, right? We're wondering, is it a little bit too relaxed?
Milner says at one point, losing the league means the Champions League final is not just a bonus for us now.
Yeah.
Season defining. So that should calm you down ever so slightly.
Yeah, and they've been there before now, I suppose, as well. So they would know not to do whatever they did. If they got too relaxed last year, they won't do it.
But they're better because on the other side, like Pochettino sounds like he's going to break down at any moment.
Unbelievable, Pochettino.
Football is, I'm quoting Poch now, football is a context of emotion and emotional state. The emotional level you arrive at for the final is going to be decisive, and you're going to have the capacity to win or lose. It's not tactics, it's not physical, it's about how the emotion triggers your talent and quality. He goes on to say, my mother used to call me a Lorana, which James Milner is translated here as a person who cries often and a lot. I am strong, but I cry. Maybe I take my car to my house 20 minutes to Barnet and listen to some music, and it translates to some moment in my life. I start to cry, and when I arrive home, my wife says, what happened? Should Spurs win to Madrid? Pochettino says he will cry for 1 week.
Yeah, because he gives, he's a perfectly nice man, but he gives some fairly dull interviews down the years. Yeah. And he never seems that emotional to me one way or the other. And his mum is saying to him, you know, he's happy, he cries, he's sad, he cries. Stop crying, my brothers are different, more like my dad, stronger. I'm very emotional. Cry at films, as you said, cry at music. When he tells his wife why he's crying, she says, you're crazy. So it just seems like, I just didn't realise this with Pochettino at all. It's a good piece. Sam Wallace has done it here in the Telegraph. All the papers have the comments, so he's obviously done it at a press conference of some kind.
There was a particularly ludicrous story going around the last couple of days about Real Madrid. He may have thought it was clearly a joke.
Yeah.
You know, something about Real Madrid. They'll only let me stay at the hotel if I'm the manager here, right? A joke, a sort of a lame kind of a quip, right?
He was on one of the late night Spanish radio shows.
And what, the Real Madrid responded fiercely.
Press release.
Saying, we have not in any way prevented Tottenham from using the hotel. Like,
hey, but it did seem like Real Madrid just kind of having the crack. I mean, there's a European Cup final without them involved now for the first few years, so come on, let's be part of the build-up. We miss it.
So, latest in long queue of Liverpool players who I now really like after an interview they've done. Joel Matip, step up. Comes across very well, Matip.
Well, he comes across, like, I mean, he just looks like the Secretary General of the United Nations, basically, or, you know, the next Secretary General of the United Nations. He's interesting, like, his where's his
bottom left there.
Yeah, his education at Schalke's boarding school, he's among the brightest pupils. His mother, Eva Maria, is a leader in dementia care with the German Red Cross, and his father, Jean, is a Red Cross supervisor who came to Germany from Cameroon with a chemistry degree. You know, so
and his sister is a doctor as well now.
Yeah. Yeah.
So pretty smart.
So he's
fella.
just describing like how he basically just got better at football this year. That it's just about like
feeling good.
Yeah, that I guess. Well, he doesn't specifically say that Virgil van Dijk freed him to do all this stuff, but he's just like come into his own a lot more. Even particularly bringing the ball out of defence, that which is something he always was able to do, but didn't quite believe that he could sort of do it without sort of getting into terrible troubles, you know. So I guess that's what management is, you know what I mean? If you have clearly he's a superb footballer, but like sometimes they can't get it out of them. Like whereas Klopp, and then we've got really great players like Van Dijk who can kind of just bring it out of them, and they feel that they can play to their best, you know.
Yeah.
So I liked Matip as well. Remember he turned his back on Cameroon a few years ago. He doesn't play international football anymore.
Right.
Like Cameroon was, I think at the time, were making the FAI look like, the most brilliantly run corporation. He just had enough. You know, so that's
not bothered.
That's
right.
Good.
He missed the Champions League final last year, by the way, thigh surgery, a summer of recuperating. At weekends, him and his partner, they took mini breaks in Paris, Germany, best of all Rome, love city, seeing how other people live. He reads newspapers, mainly for the politics and economics. I've been playing football for 15 years. You get into a bit of a bubble. Try to look around this bubble. I don't know if my childhood among scientists and doctors made me this way, but I tried to see more than football.
That was his problem, I think. He was seeing more than football. For you just see football. Now he's seeing more than football, I think, you know.
And you're happy with that?
It seems to be good for him. You know?
Yeah, no, it comes across very well, I have to say. Joe Matip, hadn't heard too much from him. By the way, on the page right beside that, Jonathan Northcroft's talking about Klopp and his army of men. So it was at Liverpool training camp in Tenerife that Jurgen Klopp began an affair of the heart, one that has proved passionate and quite consuming for him and a young partner. At witness reports, he fell in love. Tenerife is where Klopp came across paddle tennis. I hadn't realised this. Paddle tennis, a game invented in Lower Manhattan a century ago, combining elements of tennis and squash. In his youth, Jurgen Klopp was a gifted lawn tennis player, and here was an ideal sport to embrace later in life. So he's 51 now, and he plays against Pep Linders, his assistant. They play every day. Gets very serious. The other staff at Melwood have now started playing, and that is the kick-off piece for Northcroft to detail all the analytics at Liverpool, the team. There was a piece in the New York Times on this recently. It seems Liverpool basically are world leaders, literally, in football when it comes to the use of analytics. And it turns out that maybe 2-3 minutes before half-time, one of the assistants will run down the touchline to another bunch of guys, and they will pick out the various different clips, which are then sifted through, and Klopp chooses what clips to play the team at half-time as part of the halftime team talk. They are streets ahead of lots of people, it seems.
Yeah, absolutely. And it talks about the much maligned Thomas Gronemark as well, who's the throw-in coach.
Oh yeah,
if you remember.
He was on the show a couple of weeks ago, actually.
Oh,
I didn't hear it. Sorry, Nathan was talking to him on Thursday, but by all accounts, very good. Yeah, the throw-in coach.
Yeah, so it's just marginal gains is a dirty word, but obviously Liverpool have got an age in terms of all this tactical stuff and analysis in the background. And when you think that there is a lot more to Jurgen Klopp than the ranting man and the teeth and the glasses and the hair.
Are Liverpool going to win, Declan? Final word on this. When do you get into game mode yourself? When does the process
I've already got my game face on, as you can see, but I wouldn't even think of saying anything on that. Of good, bad, or indifferent.
You fully respect what a great team Spurs are, and you're just going to concentrate.
The great question is what about the one? Ponders the great issues like about Harry Kane. Is he going to play, and is that good or bad?
I think Graham Souness isn't so sure it's good actually in the Sunday Times there, but
yeah. Well, no, he won't have played for 6 weeks, but then hardly anyone else will either. I mean, this is this bizarre thing where they have the
3 weeks.
The 3 weeks. So I don't know how that's going to work, but it's not that different for Harry Kane than for anyone else at that stage. But it is one of the great questions of the age now. I think, will Harry Kane play? And
yes, is the answer.
What do you think?
He will 1,000% play.
But will he be any good?
I don't know. That. I mean, look, all the rugby lads these days can seem to literally not play for weeks on end, and whatever they're doing with them in training, they can get them up to a phenomenal level now. The days of having to get match fit are starting to be behind us. They can
fit, yeah.
You can just have your match fitness from training.
Yeah.
By the way, somewhere well, you mightn't find it in the sports section, in the culture section of the Sunday Times. Now, I'm really interested. I can't wait to see this. I'm going to see this on Wednesday, actually. There's an advanced screening, which will be great. This Diego Maradona documentary. Primarily, I'm into it because I don't like Maradona. Like, I just, there's a...
You don't like him?
No, I just...
What is it about him that you don't like?
Well, many things. Like, he's an asshole, obviously, in so many ways. But I'm looking forward to the documentary because it is from the people who made Senna and the Amy Winehouse documentary. So it's just going to be phenomenal. And they have an interview here with the director, whose name I'll mispronounce, I'm sure. His name is...
Sif Kapadia.
Sif Kapadia. Yeah, so interestingly, so he called the Senna documentary Senna.
Yeah.
And he called the Amy Winehouse documentary Amy. And yet the new one is called Diego Maradona. And he says that, and that is the theme of this documentary, which is very interesting. The film suggests and comes to the conclusion that Diego is a very different person from Maradona. That's why it's called Diego Maradona. He says, from what people said, he's still there, Diego. He's talking about Diego still there, but there is less of him. There are two parts to his personality, and it's a conscious decision that the film is about both Diego and Maradona. Senna had an external rival in Prost. Amy had fame, but it's all going on within Maradona. You never know who you'll meet. He became less that innocent person with a beautiful smile, Diego, more this aggressive personality who was not nice to be around. People say Diego's not around anymore, it's Maradona. We hope one day Diego will come back. Like, already I'm into this. Already I'm into this in a big way. It's fascinating.
Because I think, after Senna, I think he said he wouldn't go do another sports documentary, but then he was tempted in by... You see, he also got access to something like 500 hours of private archive that Maradona had stashed away. So, like, how could you say no?
Yeah, okay.
I think they've been loosely grouped together. I read something which calls Senna and now Amy, and then this kind of the trilogy of the price of fame or something like that.
Right.
So I'm like you, I'm all in on this. So,
yeah.
It'll be absolutely amazing.
And where were you on Diego Maradona? Did you love Maradona? Was he everything that was good and... charismatic and amazing?
He's an unbelievable player. But like, I remember just what he had to put up with. I think it was the 1990 World Cup. I have never seen of all the players, Messi, all these kind of players, right? He was kicked every time he got the ball. It was absolutely remarkable. Like anyone who played Argentina, they had one thought, which is, whenever Maradona gets the ball, we will kick him.
Well, didn't the butcher of Bilbao do a real number on his ankle? A shocking
Oh,
tackle.
look, it was extraordinary stuff, right? But this, like, he would just like run 5 yards and he would be chopped down, right? In every game.
Yellow card?
And maybe a warning, a strict warning, But just as a sign of what he had to go through.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like. I've never seen such a sort of abuse of a great footballer as that. So in a way, he did actually probably suffer more than almost even Best or any of those guys were always kicked, But there was something so systematic about this. You'd often find those players that terrible fouls would be committed against them, but this was different. It was a systematic thing. It was like, some form of, it wasn't like football at all. It was some kind of endurance thing where he would go 5 yards further and then they would kick him, and then 5 yards further, and then this would go on until it stopped, right? And he still nearly won the World Cup for them. He still that's the year they got to the final.
But do you find him like interesting as a person? He's not just like a boorish kind of nasty fella.
Like he's a mess, like as a person. I'm not really interested in him as a person as such, the way what he became later. But as an unbelievable player, like unbelievable. And just the amazing charisma of him. People like that, I'm not all that bothered about whether to do good interviews or not, or, he's a glorious artist, really. Do you know what I mean? And that's what you get out of him. Do you know what I mean? I'm not all that concerned about what he's like in real life or for the other 40 years of his life. You know what I mean?
Right.
Who cares? Like, do you know what I mean? It's like, he's a giant of football, and I always think people we're always asking for more. Oh, by the way, could you be like Joel Matip as well? While you're at it,
Sure.
So he gave us enough, I think. Frankly.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. I accept the point. I don't know. Senna I've watched about 3 or 4 times because there's there's a different level of thought going on with Senna. You know, his interior life is just fascinating. Spiritual quality to him as well. Whereas I just think Maradona is a pretty straightforward.
But is it not interesting? But is it not interesting to see how this guy who's just got this incredible talent can be just kind of corrupted by those what goes on around him?
No, for sure. Like, I'm all in on this. Don't get me wrong. I don't have the warmth towards Maradona. Maybe because in my generation, like, his current state was always loomed every bit as large as the kind of beautiful pictures from 1986. You know, but I've never. I know Steve O'Doyle. It's like, can't wait for this, and he's like loves Maradona.
Yeah.
I just can't seem to manufacture that genuine warmth from him. Maybe the film will totally change my mind.
See, it depends what you're looking for. I mean, like, I have no great love for Pele.
I want everything.
But I have no great love for Pele.
Do I?
After football, you know, this kind of corporate geezer.
Sell you Viagra.
Yeah.
As long as he can expressly say, not that I've ever needed it, but if I did.
Yeah.
Then I would.
Oh yeah.
I've never suffered with erectile dysfunction, but if I did, and there's a bit of that going on. Look, Pele, whatever country he's in, are they going to win the World Cup? And when are Ireland going to get to the semi-final? 2038. No, look, Pele's just out for one thing and one thing only most of the time. But I don't know. Where are you in Maradona? Do you kind of have a warmth for him, an affection, love him?
Oh yeah.
Do you? Yeah. And even when, like, you know, his other half is on her phone and then he's coming over all aggro and doing I don't know what off screen, but like it's not a good scene a couple of years ago.
I wouldn't be a fan of that, but I'm just kind of interested in how, like, that split between little Diego, who's, you know, just an amazing football player, and then how he's been morphed into this thing called Maradona.
Yeah.
And that's kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm giving him too much of a pass, but I'm just kind of interested in looking at how, you know, all these external factors can corrupt.
Yeah, no, sure. It seems like a lot of this documentary is going to focus on his time in Naples and the links with the mafia and the pressure he was under there. So that should be really...
It wouldn't really be possible to thrive in Naples without being associated with the mafia. I mean, what did they expect him to do? Like, you know?
No. Well, as the author of this piece, Jonathan Dean, writes, the film shows in Maradona's first press conference at Napoli a journalist being thrown out for a question about the club's involvement with the Camorra, the mafia there. There is confusion about how the poorest city in Italy bought the most expensive footballer in the world. 3 guesses.
Yeah, I think that going way back though, there was always like a sense of Maradona in Argentinian football as a kind of an outsider, because he's not basically of a European type, you know. So he would almost be considered a bit of an outsider even back then, you know. And these kind of just a bit of a wild man, I guess, you know.
Yeah.
So,
just the last thing on this, I remember there was the writer Zadie Smith did this great review of the movie Get Out. I don't know if you've seen it, but she has this line that the movie looks about to be oppressed is not to be obscenely hated as much as it is to be obscenely loved. So I think that kind of happened to Maradona among the fans in Naples.
I suspect I may well watch the movie and have a deeper kind of appreciation for...
And look, I might hate him at the end of it.
There we go. Look, we're all doing too
come
nice
back here next weekend.
Some breaking news I must bring you, and very sad news for Sean O'Brien. A statement from Leinster. Unfortunately, Leo Cullen has confirmed that back row Sean O'Brien, who lifted the Pro 14 trophy yesterday on behalf of the 57 Leinster players, completed over 23-game season, etc., will undergo surgery in the next few weeks for a hip injury, and as a result will be ruled out of action for up to 6 months. As a result, Sean O'Brien has been ruled out of the World Cup in Japan. There you are, breaking news from Leinster. Sean O'Brien will undergo surgery in the next few weeks for a hip injury. As a result, he has been ruled out of the Rugby World Cup in Japan.
So that's it. I mean,
that's his last act in Irish rugby yesterday then. It's a sad end, isn't it?
Well, you're assuming that the international career finished, like, I mean...
I sort of am, yeah. I mean, maybe not, but I'd be surprised if he's in after...
he must have... because I know that Cullen had... Like, this had been... we had been promised an update on O'Brien, you know, after the final, so I guess they'd known it this whole week, so yeah, I guess it's just, you know, you could see him, one of the first things he did when he got onto the pitch yesterday was to hug Cullen and Lancaster, and then Johnny giving him the trophy.
Yeah, okay. Breaking news, well, Andy Dunn's in later to talk about the rugby, we'll get his thoughts on that. I think that basically leaves Josh van der Fleer standing, and any other sevens knocking around. Could be about it for the moment. Max Deegan, could be a bolter, is right. Okay, final few pieces anyone want to mention? I jotted down the David Walsh and Lance Armstrong piece. He's done an interview with NBC, which I think was widely misquoted headline-wise. It was like Lance Armstrong, I regret nothing. As if like, ha, I doped and it was great. Whereas I think the thrust of what he's saying to NBC is almost, I regret nothing because without being caught and having gone through it and having suffered the fall, I wouldn't have emerged a smarter person, a wiser person, I suppose, is what he means.
Yeah.
And in fairness, Walsh sort of accepts that.
Well, just the line from Walsh that I've highlighted, Walsh says he's less inclined to persecute the 47-year-old Armstrong. An inner voice asks, what about all the others he cheated to win the Tour de France and he remained listed as champions? They didn't deceive the cancer community, nor did they earn the tens of millions that came Armstrong's way. They just cheated and got away with it. In a sense, he took the fall for an entire sport.
Yeah, I guess because so the NBC piece with Armstrong's going to air during the Stanley Cup this week, 30-minute exclusive, and the exact quote he has was, we did what we had to do to win. It wasn't legal. I wouldn't change a thing, whether it's losing a bunch of money, going from hero to zero. Primarily, I wouldn't change the lessons that I've learned. I don't learn all the lessons if I don't act the way I did. I don't get investigated and sanctioned if I don't act the way I acted. If I just joked and didn't say a thing, none of that would have happened, none of it. I was asking for them to come after me. It was an easy target, he says. Like Walsh kind of cites Christine Brennan of USA Today, who reacted to that piece by saying, here's a lesson I wish Armstrong would learn. Go away and stay away. No more interviews, no more public appearances. You're a pariah, you're an embarrassment, you're a drug cheat, you're a farce. You not only deceived millions of fans, you duped the people who trusted you, relied on you, even needed you, cancer victims, cancer survivors and their families. And Walsh is saying he feels a bit less inclined to persecute him in the same way. But he does offer the giant asterisk to that, which is he's never properly apologised to Betsy Andreo, never fully verified what she said about him in the hospital in '96. And he says, I know why he's done this. Betsy Andreo knows too. Some very high-ranking people were involved in the conspiracy to cover it up. To make Betsy look like a liar, at the heart of the conspiracy was a very serious amount of money. So his take is, until he gives Betsy Andreo a proper apology, he can't really go on about this redemption thing and how I'm a much better person now. But that's on page 11, Sunday Times. Any other bits or pieces anyone wants to point to before we wrap this up very quickly?
Just looking at the coverage of the 2,000 guineas yesterday. Oh, yeah. That's Curran. Very good report by Dara O'Cruher in the Sunday Independent. And, I just found out the race was on yesterday. I would normally have been looking forward to the 2,000 guineas for weeks, when I was a kid, basically. I just loved racing. And I just looked at it yesterday, and there didn't seem to be any buzz about the place or about the Curragh, and I was just looking at it on television. But there seemed to be plenty of space for people to be wandering around the new stand and everything. And you wonder, what happened? There's the, again, I used to look forward to the first day of the flat. It was around St. Patrick's Day. I guess maybe there's so much bad all-weather racing or something. So, there is no first day of the flat almost, because every day is. But there's just something has kind of gone missing. Maybe it's just me. I don't know.
That was exactly what I was going to ask. Is it just you?
I don't think so, because I would watch any sport at any time, if there's anything at all of any interest in it, I'll watch it. But for some reason, the old racing got away from me, and particularly the flat racing, which I actually used to prefer to the jumps.
It's so kind of linked with gambling that you felt?
No, not at all. No, I don't care. I don't mind about that at all. Yeah. I still love racing. Anytime I look at it, it brings me back to when I used to really kind of be into it. But it's just something about the maybe it's just it's so dominant. Aidan O'Brien is so dominant now. But then you always had that in racing, I guess. Going back to Vincent O'Brien. But I was just saying to Gavin earlier, I do recall that there were still about 10, possibly 15 top trainers in Ireland or Britain who could win the Derby. Right. Who could win the big races, who could win the 2,000 guineas. That seems to be diminishing all the time, So this is actually quite a surprise result yesterday, because it was Barry Hill's son, I can't remember his name, but Charlie Hills, who, I remember his Barry Hills, right? But Charlie Hills trained it, I think it was 16-1, so it was kind of an unexpected winner. But it may be that thing that we're seeing in an awful lot of sports now, where things become uncompetitive in some essential way. I mean, there's been a lot of talk of Manchester City slaughtering Watford, Dublin winning by 85 goals with 14 men against Louth, and just even like Brooks Koepka, who was strolling away with the PGA, and even when he choked, someone else choked. Like Dustin Johnson proceeded to immediately choke in order to oblige him. So there is an issue with that. I think just like the essentially uncompetitive nature of some things, that something kind of gives in a sport, and it just lacks that kind of energy, maybe.
Okay. Interesting. Owen Morgan is profiled in The Observer, by the way, if you're interested. It's also in the Sunday Independent. Obviously, he's captaining the English cricket team, and they go in his favourites. The Cricket World Cup gets underway in the next couple of days across England and Wales, so if you want to read about Owen Morgan there, it's in The Observer. I wouldn't say it's a stunningly good piece. It's pretty interesting. They talked to a few former coaches and got a sense of a man who's very driven, so that's there if you're looking for it. Johnny Doyle in the Mail on Sunday is a good piece as well. Still playing for Alan Wood. Johnny Doyle still going strong. He's been playing since God knows when now, and he's never missed a match for Alan Wood or Kildare in his career, which is extraordinary. But he is worried about football and the lack of visibility at the moment, so he's in the Mail on Sunday, page 78. I think we're pretty much done. Anything else you want to quickly point someone to, or is that about it?
Oh, well, I just personally like Rod Liddle. Who would you imagine is Rod Little's favourite Premier League manager?
See, I sort of know the answer to this.
Really? Yeah, believe it or not, it is Neil Warnock. And his favourite, he was going through his favourite moments from the season, and the rant. Well, actually, the two rants going to mention: the rant on the pitch against the referees after that larceny against Chelsea, and then obviously the pro-Brexit, to hell with the rest of the world. Yeah. So I did enjoy that.
Very good. Gavin Cooney from the 42.e, thank you.
Cheers.
And Declan Lynch from the Sunday Independent. Thanks very much, Declan.
Thanks, Joe.
We will take a short break. That's our papers done for today. We'll check in with Mossy Quinn, where it's currently Westmeath 8, Laois 11. So Westmeath have got it back to within 3 points of Laois, and Donegal are 3 points out of Fermanagh in Brewster Park. We'll check in there in just a moment.
Get up-to-the-minute news updates at newstalk.com and on the Newstalk app.
Let's get one thing straight. The car needed a valet anyway. I'm only a little dog. I had a few bowls of water. Accidents happen. Could have been worse. Anyway, it's sorted. They've got AA car insurance, so they're covered to drive other cars. Listen, word to the wise, yeah? Maybe make sure this one is an air freshener, okay?
With AA car insurance, our members get fully comprehensive insurance to drive other cars too. Go to the AA.ie. Who's got clever car insurance? Acceptance criteria, terms and conditions apply. AA Ireland Limited trading as AA Insurance is regulated by the Central Bank of Ireland.
Your to-do list. It's always pretty chock-a-block. There's the things from yesterday you never got to yesterday, and the things for today you'll probably put off till tomorrow. But don't put off saving up to €647. Go direct to Energia and switch to Ireland's cheapest dual fuel